Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the Mission Impossible podcast that is still going on as far as I know. I mean, we are about to...
As far as you know.
As far as I know, we're about to post our 75th episode, which
Yes.
is really something else.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I mean, I couldn't have done it without you.
We're almost there to 100.
We're almost there. Yeah, what are we going to do for 100? We got to do something big.
We're going to have to do a party. We've also done 2 bonus episodes.
Yes.
So technically we've done 77 episodes.
Right. But those are kind of outside of the stream. Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, or maybe we've done 3 bonus episodes. I don't know. But our first interview with Mo Shafiq, I consider that to be that's a real episode.
Yeah, that's a real episode.
So that's a bonus. So
that was our first guest, I think. Yeah. Anyway,
good times.
We're back.
It's been a long time here.
Longer than I ever imagined, but also more fruitful than I ever imagined.
Yeah, no, and more fun and
more fun.
I think we were so in love with the Mission Impossible movies, and we were so excited for Fallout, and then Fallout exceeded our expectations. And somehow Fallout was even better than we thought it was going to be, and then suddenly it was like, wow, we could do this forever.
Yeah. We could make a meal out of this, a meal that costs us hundreds of dollars. But we need to tell people right off the bat, brand new t-shirt designs.
Yes.
Some great new designs.
We have great new designs, courtesy of Drew's lovely wife, Katie.
Yeah.
They are specifically Light the Fuse.
Yeah.
So there's a white lettering, Light the Fuse. You can get on any color shirt. Or black lettering, Light the Fuse, and it's the lettering is the logo. It's kind of like the original Mission Impossible movie, and then there's also the logo that is
circular logo,
the like blast, the kind of like fire burst, whatever, blast logo that you see in your podcast player there. That is on the shirt as well. And then there's also another one that's kind of a flame lettering, Light the Fuse. Anyway, I can't explain it. Just go to our TeePublic page.
Just buy them, please.
Yes, please go to our TeePublic page and buy them. And it helps support the show if you buy a shirt.
Let's do a little role playing.
Okay.
I'm a guy walking down the street, and I've got a Light the Fuse shirt on, and you see me.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Punch you in the stomach. No,
I'm
like,
me.
Oh, you listen to Light the Fuse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, do you know this voice? Do I sound like something?
Oh, you're saying me specifically?
Yeah. I'm a stranger.
I'll probably disguise my voice and be like, oh, you like that show?
I heard it's really cool.
But seriously, it helps. It helps.
It does
us.
help.
It's be a Patreon subscriber or buy shirts. It all supports the show. It allows us to keep doing this. We are still operating at a loss, but we're getting closer to breaking even, and that's all because of your support.
Getting paid back.
So thank you so much. Yeah, we still have to pay ourselves back as well, but that's okay. We do it for the love of it, and anything we can get. So there are also, other than shirts, there are coffee mugs and laptop cases and
pins.
Yeah, there are pins now. There are magnets. There are stickers. You can get any of those for just a couple of bucks.
Great stocking stuffers?
Yeah, stocking stuffers. There you go. People who have never heard of our podcast would love it, and then you can tell them all about it.
That's me at every party or wedding or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
please do
exciting,
that. So please go to our TeePublic page and look at our items, and then also sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah.
We've got commentaries for the first 5 movies now, all the way through Rogue Nation, and we're gonna have the commentary for Fallout.
It will be up imminently.
We'll be up, in just a few days from this release of this podcast. So, please sign up for our Patreon. If you sign up for the bonus content, then you'll get all those things. There's bonus episodes. We're going to start... I'm actually just moving now, and I'm moving closer to you.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot easier to pop over and do a little more little bonus episodes for our Patreon subscribers. We are committed to making it worth your while.
And I would love to know what people want from the Patreon.
Yes.
What would make you sign up? Please tell us on Twitter or email us and let us know what would get you to sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah, if you're considering it and you're like, well, they don't do this.
Yeah.
If we did that.
Yeah. If we gave you episodes early, would you not subscribe to the main feed? That's my biggest question. Charles and I are debating this. So
I don't want to lose subscribers
by
having people just follow the Patreon. I don't know. Anyway, it's a weird...
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know what will get you to sign up, because we would love that. And thank you so much to all our Patreon followers. We appreciate it so much.
Should we just read different things from your
my serial killer notes.
So what is Jurassic Park and Alien sound effects?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
That's something that's we have Michael Kamper on the show
Today and next week.
And for this week and next week and next week that comes up, and we'll relay that when we get to next week's episode.
Okay.
Are
you going to dinner with Andy?
That's on my to-do list. Will you stop looking through my notebook?
I just want to know why I wasn't invited. That's it.
I'm supposed to get dinner with our friend Andy. Yeah.
Ask him about that Hack Fujimoto book he's got.
Oh yes, I will. He said it's great.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's like
it's an interview book or something. Okay. I ordered the one for Darius Kanji.
Oh, Darius Kanji. That's who it is.
Darius Kanji. Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm to get that. I'm gonna get that soon. But yeah,
would that set you back?
Andy is a cinematographer. He shot Pen 15. And he's shooting season 2 right now.
Oh, great.
It's a great show on Hulu.
One of the most critically acclaimed shows of the year.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it on Hulu, you should. Yes. Anyway, stop making fun of me for my notes.
I'm not. I'm asking. I think this could be a recurring segment.
Well, this page is not related to our podcast. So
that's what I'm more interested in.
I did. So we got things to talk about. Haley Atwell. She's training.
She's training.
I don't think we've recorded an episode since the training thing came out. She was on a racetrack.
That's right.
She Instagrammed a picture and she hashtagged MI7 and 8 and she said, "Am I training?" I think she hashtagged "Am I training" too. She's doing some kind of race car driving training for MI7 and 8.
Can you imagine how much fun that would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess Haley Atwell's going to actually do some driving.
Do we know that Wade's coming back? We have not confirmed that.
We've not confirmed yet that Wade Eastwood is back as stunt coordinator, but
I cannot see why he would not.
Right. I would assume he did both Rogue Nation and Fallout. I think he's going to be back.
We're going to be talking to him again soon, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. We'd love to do a big sit down with him. So yeah, I don't know. That's exciting. Race car driving. That's cool. I mean, we're in pre-production now. It sounds like.
Yeah.
I say we as if we're doing anything.
We're in pre-production for the episodes we're gonna have to record for 7 and 8.
Well, and the big news today there's another bit of casting.
Yes, Palm,
yeah. What's her last name?
Clementif or Clementif?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but she's in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah. And Endgame and
yes, right, yes. And what is her character's name?
Mantis.
Okay. She has now joined the cast. Christopher McQuarrie tweeted and Instagrammed that today and said, what did he say? How do you spell femme fatale?
Yeah.
So it sounds like, from these little hints to me, with the dossier before for Haley Atwell and now that for Palm, it sounds like Palm will be a villain and Haley Atwell will be on the IMF team.
Yes.
I assume.
And then did you see her response when she retweeted it?
What did she say?
She said, "Mischief accepted."
Great.
Yeah?
Oh, man. So we're
in it.
We're getting, you got to...
How do you say femme fatale in French? Because she is a French model and actress.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How do you say femme fatale in French?
Yeah.
Okay. That is awesome.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
This
is a great choice.
This is getting exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to happen soon.
Yeah.
And we still don't know. I saw a lot of people commenting on Twitter and Instagram, like, what about Rebecca Ferguson? What about Rebecca Ferguson?
No confirmation.
There's no confirmation. She did do an interview, though, I think months ago, where she mentioned that she was coming back.
I'm surprised they haven't asked her about it during the Dr. Sleep press tour.
Yeah. Wait, why hasn't anybody... Are you interviewing her at all for that?
No.
Well, why aren't you?
Well, that has come and gone because the movie is out. Did not do very well, but she is amazing.
Have you ever interviewed her before?
No.
Okay, well... You need to get going on your job.
She hasn't done. I'm trying to look.
You're trying to see it.
Yeah.
You're doing some research now to find out if she said anything.
Hollywood Reporter says Rebecca Ferguson is expected to return.
Okay, well that's good. So let's fingers
But
crossed.
You know what this says to me is that Rebecca Ferguson firmly in the good guy camp. We've got a new bad guy, morally nebulous woman.
Well, that's the big question. Will she be, a part of the IMF now, or what? I mean, we'll see. What else did I want to talk about? I had a couple of podcast plugs. I wanted to plug other podcasts.
Why?
Not ours.
Why?
Because they were entertaining things that I think people would find interesting.
All right, go ahead.
Did you ever listen to David Kep on Script Notes?
No. Does he talk about Mission Impossible?
John August and Craig Mazin have their podcast Script Notes. David Koepp was on there, and it was awesome. And he just talks about his career. You know, his career is so varied. Koepp wrote the first Mission Impossible script for the first movie.
Jurassic Park.
He did, of course, Jurassic Park, Spider-Man, a bunch of other stuff. And he's also been a director, and he's had a very strange, eclectic...
Does he say anything about that new movie?
Yes, he does a little bit. Yeah, it's a really good interview. I wrote this note down so long ago. Now we haven't recorded in a while that I can't remember too many specifics, but just remember he talked about his career in general. It's a really good listen. Just wanted to plug that.
And a real collaborator with Brian De Palma, doing 3 movies with him.
Yes, Snake Eyes, right?
Yeah, more than I think any other writer has worked with De Palma.
Wow.
So Snake Eyes, Carlito's Way.
Oh,
and
right.
Mission Impossible.
Oh, my God. Carlito's Way is one of my favorite De Palma movies.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
There you go. Okay. My other plug is just for Christopher McQuarrie, was on Brian Koppelman's podcast.
Yes.
Called The Moment. McQuarrie was, as always, just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
If you love McQuarrie as much as we do, it's very informative and funny and great. And he just talks about his career and all that stuff. It's awesome.
All right. Well, should we get into this interview and come back later?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
This is Michael Kamper, who we met on Twitter. He was commenting on something that Todd Vaziri had tweeted relating to MI3. So he was a sound editor on MI3. I think you'll enjoy this interview.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And we'll be back after part 1 of Michael Kamper.
So, Michael, you can you tell us what you worked on Mission Impossible 3? Is that right?
I did. I was a sound editor, sound effects editor on the project with the team of sound designers and sound editors and Foley artists that worked. The company that did it was a company called Sound Deluxe, and it was in its time it was a very large sound studio right in Hollywood that worked on a lot of big films long before I got there, and after I left, they were still going strong. Unfortunately, they're no longer there, but I was privileged to work with a very talented group of people there.
We found you on Twitter because you responded when Todd Vaziri posted about the bridge sequence.
Yes.
You know, because he had done some amazing visual effects for the bridge sequence. You responded and said, "Oh, I worked on that scene." So, you know, was it limited to just that scene, or was it throughout?
No. Yeah, the way we broke things out on that film, and the way like a lot of you approach a lot of large films like that. Any film where there's like a lot of big action films, there's a lot of stuff going on. What you tend to do on the audio side is break things down to what we call food groups. So because you want sort of consistency throughout the whole film. Because the other way to sort of break the work down in films is just by reel. It's like just sound editor just gets a reel and just does everything in that reel, as opposed to food groups where you just take a category of sounds and you just do that through the whole film. And then the way is there's a certain level of consistency throughout. And so like there's one sound editor who just did all the guns. There's one sound editor who just did all the cars. I was doing everything that blew up, as well as a lot of other miscellaneous things. But I did a lot of the destruction, explosions. So the bridge sequence was certainly the one that I worked on the most, because it's probably the most going on there. The other one being sort of everything happening in the rescue of Lindsay early on in the film in Reel 2. I did, the warehouse blowing up and the helicopters blowing up and a lot of the destruction happening during the assault the team is making, and then just a lot of miscellaneous things throughout the film. But mostly, like, that was my big thing. Just a lot of car crashes and explosions and other miscellaneous things like that.
So did you work on one of my favorite sound effects in the whole movie, which is the blade of the windmill crashing into the ground?
Yes, that was me. I did that sound. I think as well as the sheep sort of bleeding as the thing, hits near them. I worked on that sequence and did a lot of smashing and crashing. Some of that I think was some of the Foley stuff because we got some tremendous work from our Foley team as well. But yeah, I did the bulk of that was me for sure.
That's awesome.
And maybe for our listeners, we should explain what Foley is. I'm not sure if they know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the general difference between Foley and sound effects editing is that Foley is probably the most recognizable because it's the most visual. It's the one where you see people watching a film and sort of performing sounds to the actions. Usually it's like a lot of smaller things like footsteps and movement sounds, body movement, cloth movement, stuff like that. But they also do a lot of really intricate sort of like they have a lot of just junk in their space in their studio and they just pull stuff out and create all these really wild, amazing sounds that just sort of get added to the mix. But sound effects,
they're like putting on different kinds of shoes, and they have different surfaces in their studio, right?
Exactly.
So they have like a concrete floor that they can record footsteps on, and they have like a wood floor they can record steps on. Those kind of different things, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you see behind the scenes, featurettes and films, and they do something on the sound, usually it's that, just because it's so sort of visually interesting.
Right.
The rest of us are just sitting in front of computers, just pulling stuff from libraries. We do a lot of recording, obviously. I can't think off the top of my head if any specific. Oh yes, the one thing specifically that I was a part of the recording of for this film was in the siege, where in the warehouse siege when they were rescuing Lindsay, they had all these fluorescent light bulbs that were getting destroyed as a part of it. And we went down and just in sort of the basement of the building we were in, just did a whole big recording of all these fluorescent bulbs breaking and crashing, and that made its way into the film. And so, part of what we do, and part of that what's part of our budgets a lot of times is, okay, we need to record this amount of material fresh for this project. We go out and record it, we edit it, we put it in the project. And then we also are pulling a lot of material from library sounds, things we recorded from past projects, stuff like that.
That's so cool.
So in the library that you pull from, is that something that you've accumulated, or is it like are there databases or something? How does that work?
Sure. I mean, every sound editor has their own collection of things they've accumulated over the years. The studio, because it had been around for a couple decades before I got there, had its own giant library of sounds you could pull from. Individual editors, you would sort of learn the kinds of things people would have, from their personal stuff. And say, hey, if you have some of this sort of thing, I have some of this you want to trade, so I can, because I kind of need that sort of thing in my project. So there's a lot of that going on. But yeah, I mean, it's and then there's these databases. They're all just on hard drives now, and we just have these database programs that they're all filtered in, and we have keywords for everything, just like a normal database. We just have just go searching for different kinds of sounds, and then the fun thing is like you just throw in a random keyword sometimes, and just see what comes up, and sometimes that inspires you. It's like, oh hey, that would sound cool in this sequence that I'm working on. Just grab that. But usually what happens is you search for, well, I'm doing car crash. I'll type in car crash and get, the 10,000 car crash sounds that I have in my library, and just start filtering through and finding, okay, let me just pull this in. Let me pull this in my Pro Tools session, and then decide, okay, like this grouping sort of feels good for this moment, and then move on from there. So, and then of course, as you're going through, there's a lot of revising and iteration on the work that you're doing. As you put something together and you come back to it later and you're like, oh, this is not sounding as good as I wanted it to. I'll just try a couple different sounds. Things like that. And then you also, just having worked on as many projects as I have in my career, you begin to remember, it's like, oh yeah, I on this film a couple years ago, I remember I used this sound for this thing, but it would be really cool if I used it here, but maybe if I pitched it differently or mixed it with this sound, it would be what I was looking for here. So there's sort of that sort of sense of it too, where you have this giant database, but it's also broken up into the projects you've worked on, so you can easily find something just based on how you've used it in the past.
Was there anything that was particularly challenging in this movie?
Just the scope of it, for sure. I mean, this was probably the film I spent the most amount of time in. The time on the project, I probably spent about 6 months total on this project, which is pretty long for usually most sound jobs I've had in my career on films can last anywhere from like 3 weeks to maybe 3 months. So like being on it for like half a year was a big deal. And I got to be on the stage for the mixing, like pretty much the entire mix process all the way to the finals. So I was fortunate to sort of see it from the very beginnings all the way through to the end. So I got to spend a lot of time on this project.
How many days were you on the mixing stage?
Almost all of the final mix for sure. I was there during some of the sound effects premixes when my material was getting premixed. I was on the stage.
But I'm curious how much time like is spent total on a project of this size.
But the final mix, I'm trying to remember. The final mix was probably maybe 3 weeks to a month at the most.
Wow.
Maybe like 3 weeks. That sounds about right. Maybe 2 weeks being the most amount of work, with 3 weeks of just like sort of finishing and polishing and stuff like that, with a bunch of weeks, ahead of that of pre-dubs where they just take all the material and do the pre-mix of things.
Right. And is J.J. Abrams there? Like, is the director there for that full 3 weeks? No.
Generally not. The director will come and go. He'll certainly be there for a lot of the final mix. Usually the picture editor is there almost entirely, because by that point they own the film along with the director, and they have, they know exactly what the director wants, and usually it's at that point it's the editor, and in the beginning stages the director will sort of filter in and out, but certainly in those last couple of weeks the directors will be there most of the time.
Right. So were you working with in this case it would be Marianne and Mary Jo?
Yes. Yeah, they were around quite a bit. I remember, if not one, then the other, and sometimes both of them, because they were still doing a lot of work right up to the end on, getting the visual effects in and stuff like that. But they were around quite a bit from what I remember on the project for sure. But like I said, yeah, and JJ would sort of filter in and out. Tom Cruise would sort of filter in and out occasionally too, especially there on the last day. If we do like a playthrough after we do a pass, they would come in. I remember Paul Wagner was there quite a bit. And then we just go through the film. They'd give their notes, and then we'd go to work, and then maybe they'd come back a couple days later to do another run through.
Do you remember any? Sorry, because I think Drew and I
Charles, we have the same question. We have the same question. Go ahead, Charles.
Do you remember any of the notes that Tom Cruise gave on the sound? I'm so curious.
I honestly don't remember specific things. I mean, this is obviously a while ago, so I do remember. Certainly they were both taking notes the whole time. It was like JJ and Tom, and those were the two, the sets of notes that everyone, listened to first and sort of paid, sort of looked at, okay, and tried to address. I don't remember any. The one thing that always stuck out to me that came out of that is in the Shanghai sequence when Tom is sliding down off the roof and he just catches himself at the very end. The line where he just goes okay, where he kind of just like gives this big relief that he made it. That was never in the film up until almost the last week of mix.
Oh, wow.
That was something they decided, like, because the punchline to the moment was supposed to be Ving going, oh, I knew he'd make it. But they felt like that wasn't a strong enough punchline to that moment, and they needed something from Tom. And so they literally just took a microphone down into the front of this mix stage and ran through that sequence a couple times and had Tom on the mix stage just do that line of, where he just kind of catches himself at the very end. He goes, oh, okay. And then sort of Ving's line after that sort of just was sort of the a little bit more. It was all the weight of the being sort of the funny moment was off of Ving. It was more just on Tom's sort of human reaction to that. So I remember that was a very cool moment.
How did they sneak that in? Is it on the back of his head? I assume they're not showing his lips.
Well, no, it's just dark. I watched the film again last night just to refresh myself, and it's just really dark. You can't really see his mouth, and so, but he just was never saying anything in that moment up until, like I said, like the last week of the mix when they decided it needed that extra moment.
That seems to be kind of the like Bad Robot way, is like, if throw things in later, shoot things wherever you can, just to like kind of plus up the movie, which is really interesting.
Well, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where, in any creative process, you have to sit with something for a while. You have to see it in certain forms before you can say, oh, okay, this is working, this is not working. We thought this is working, but maybe just needs a little something extra, and I mean, that's just part of the process. And they just, at that moment, they realized, hey, this just isn't quite landing the way we want it to, so we just need a little extra something. So let's try to sneak this in.
So great.
So are you there in the mix, like with a laptop or something, and then they turn to you and say, hey, this explosion's not quite sounding right, like we need something that's a little bit sounds fuller or something like that, and then you go off and start looking through a bank of other explosion sounds? Like, is that something that would happen?
For sure. But, at the time, nobody was doing any of this on their laptops. Laptops weren't quite up to par yet. So we all had, there was a computer running Pro Tools that was hooked up to the mix board right next to the mix stage, and then in the back of the mix, like just sort of down the hall, there were a couple of edit bays where we had Pro Tools systems hooked up. So if we needed to address something in the middle of a mix, we could either quickly do it right there on the stage, take a couple of minutes and fix something, or if it was a little bit more involved, we could go down the hall and sort of work on it and then send it to the computer next to the mix board when it was ready, and then feed it in that way.
And when did you start getting music from Giacchino, and does that affect your process in any way?
Not really so much on this film. There was certainly a lot of music already in place when we started working on it, a lot of temp stuff. I don't remember off the top of my head what they were using. But I do know, the one thing I always remember is in the scene at the end when she's trying to revive him, after he shocked himself and he's lying there, and she's trying to bring him back. I remembered very distinctly they were using music from Lost.
Oh, interesting.
Sort of that Lost piano sound throughout that scene, as a temp music before they put in the final music that he ended up making for the film.
So it was already Giacchino.
Oh yeah.
Before. Okay. That's really interesting.
So I can't remember though what they were using elsewhere in the film, but I'm sure they were using, especially for the big moments where they wanted to use the theme. I'm sure they were using things from maybe the previous two films at that point, just to say, okay, we want the theme to be here. Like it was always there, like when they were in the boat after the Vatican scene, and they're going down the riverway, successfully having captured Davian, and they had the theme was always there. It just wasn't obviously the final version that Giacchino ended up doing.
Well, I was going to ask, were you a fan of the franchise before signing on?
I was of the movies. I've never really seen the TV show. I certainly was aware of it. I remember the theme song obviously was just something that was just in the culture. It was just like everybody knew what that theme song was and what it meant. And so I remember being fans of the first two films. I remember seeing them in the theaters. I remember seeing MI2 in the Chinese theater. Right there a little bit after I'd moved to LA is when it came out, I remember, and I saw it in the Chinese on its not in this opening weekend probably. So I was a fan of that. I was certainly a fan of Tom Cruise and his films, and so it was one of those things where because of the relationships that existed with the people I was working with at Sound Deluxe, it was a film that I knew was coming. It was something I knew I was going to be working on for a while. And so it's just one of these things that it was like, okay, it was just like this, it was going to be this big action film with Tom Cruise in it, the biggest action hero, movie star on the planet, and it was just like going to be a really a high watermark for me in my career, and it certainly was. You know, it certainly is something I look back on very fondly, and really enjoyed my time working on.
That's awesome. And did you keep watching the movies?
Interesting enough, I've never seen Rogue Nation all the way through. I've seen parts of it, and I've certainly seen the last two.
Right.
I've seen the last two in the theaters, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with the next two, for sure. It's just it's something that, it's a certain kind of action film that I feel like, with the Marvel movies and everything's trying to be bigger than anybody else. It's like, yeah, they do some cool stuff, but they're not trying to top everybody. They're just trying to give us cool scenes, action scenes, and character stuff to watch. And I really sort of like that about the film. It's got this little sort of niche all to itself at this point.
Yeah, it's an exciting. You always what you're getting, but you don't at the same time with each movie. Yes,
yeah, for sure.
Charles, did you have any more questions?
Well, I have to ask you. I have to ask you about another movie in your filmography.
Sure.
Team America: World Police is a movie that I love so much.
Yes.
That Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and I know that supposedly from what I've heard, the post production was very rushed, and I'm curious what the process was for you on that, because I assume the sound in that movie is built completely from the ground up. There's no production audio, I would assume.
No, I mean it's an animated film, just like any other animated film. There's nothing there except for obviously the actor's VO that they're working against. But there's no production sound to work from. So it's all manufactured by Foley artists and sound editors and stuff like that. My role on that again was, I did a lot of the vehicles, especially in sort of the desert chase. So I did that whole sequence. So mostly stuff in the beginning, like the first 3 reels. So like the first third of the film is like I did a lot of stuff on it. I actually didn't even see like the last back end of the film until much later, because I just that was what I was working on, and I didn't spend as much time on that. I was only on it maybe for a month, at the most, just working on that in those beginning sequences. But yeah, it was from what I understand, it was a very troubled post-production. One of the original mixers, because they were just going at all hours of the night just trying to get it done. And I think one of the original mixers, who was like an old school guy, just at one point just like got up and left. It's like, nope, find somebody else to do this. I'm not interested in doing this anymore. So yeah, it was an interesting production from what I understand. I didn't get to see a ton of that, but I do remember just remembering the oddity of the film, and just being a fan of those two guys from South Park for sure. I knew that they were going to deliver something just wacky, and they certainly didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of troubled productions, you were also on the Exorcist prequel.
One of them, yes.
Which version of that were you on?
Oh gosh, yeah, I was on the first one, I guess. Or no, wait, the second one.
The first,
the Rennie Harlan.
So the second one,
Drew,
the Rennie Harlan.
You should do a quick rundown of what this means, what happened here, because it's pretty insane.
So what happened was, I guess at one point during post-production, the Exorcist prequel, which was directed by Paul Schrader, who everybody knows is the screenwriter of Taxi Driver, he made First Reformed last year, which was terrific, was removed. Rennie Harlan was implemented, and then they reshot like 75% of the movie. But then afterwards, Schrader's version did come out on video, so I guess now we can make up our minds as to which one is better or which one is, worse. But what was that process like for you? And did you know about all this drama going into it?
I was somewhat aware because I was working on after Rennie Harlan worked on it. So I was working on that version. And I do remember stories about how there was a lot of material that was being reshot, and then, there was certain material that I think like even another sound crew had done some work on, and we were inheriting what they had worked on. But yeah, I did do a lot of sort of just random things in that film as well, just sort of the general sound effects. I remember there was the hell hyenas or whatever they are that just I honestly, because I never saw the finished film, I remember the visual effects because they were all visual effects. They just looked terrible, and I don't even remember if they're in the final film or not, just because they looked awful when they were making it.
Oh, they're in there, and I think they're in both of them, but they definitely look worse in the Harlan version.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I just remember, visually they looked horrible. The early, obviously they were still working on it, but it looked terrible. But yeah, that was another film that I remember there being a lot of just back and forth and controversy and things. I remember watching it and saying, some of this just doesn't make any sense, and it's like, well, it is what it is. So,
right. We got that looming release date that we gotta hit. Yeah, that's fascinating. But it's interesting that you can see both movies now. So
yes,
I'm sure the sound effects editing on the Harlan version is superior. We'll just go out on a limb and say that.
Well, it's always fascinating to because being in the position that we're in, and especially on these movies that are still in process of being edited, and it's sort of always fascinated me to watch them as they've evolved. Watching the different edits come in, the choices that get made, and saying, okay, hey, they cut that scene out, or this is different. Usually because it made a lot of work for us because we had to completely change around our Pro Tools sessions each time. But it was always just sort of fascinating sort of watch, every movie as it evolved and the choices that they made.
So I love that we're getting in the nitty gritty here. We're going deep.
Yeah, we are.
And we're making it happen.
Yes. And thank you to Kevin Blumenfeld for the plot theme.
Just the plot theme.
The illegal loving homage.
Being a dad's turned him soft. But it also given him this reckless spirit.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's not soft. He's got an edge now.
Yeah, he just doesn't have time to legally...
What about me? I'm a dad now.
Have
I gone soft?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great talking to Michael.
And we'll be back with him next week.
Yes, and I had something that we talked about. Oh, I thought it was so interesting when he talked about, I don't know who it was, but he said on Team America there was a veteran mixer who just quit, who just walked away. That's crazy.
Wasn't the story that they were offering people $3 million to finish the movie because they were so fed up with it?
Really?
Yeah.
I love that movie so much. You know that they were originally they just wanted to remake the script of Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah.
They went to the studio and they said they just were going to do the script of Day After Tomorrow with puppets. And the studio was like, you can't do that. And they're like, all right. So then they had to write Team America. Yeah.
It was a great chat. He was lovely.
Yes, definitely.
And it's nice to have people from different departments and different, strata.
Yeah.
And he's got some great stuff next week. But before we come back next week, we've got to remind everybody to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. And just tell people about it. I feel like people don't even know we exist, but they love Mission Impossible. So just tell them. I would say just bother coworkers.
Yes. Spread the word.
Employees. Casual acquaintances.
Run down the street. Just screaming.
Yes. Yes. And if you see either of us, I got to say this. If you see either of us in public, please go up to Charles because he is feeling so left out.
People talk to you all the time.
I know they do.
They see you and they're like, oh, light the fuse.
Yeah.
I never get that. Nobody knows what I look like or nobody cares.
They care.
They're only fans of half of the podcast.
No, that's not true. You just aren't in the right place at the right time. So
yeah. I go see movies by myself late at night when no one else is around, and you're out there in the streets.
In the daylight.
Yeah. So like, subscribe,
rate,
review. Yeah, please. Writing a review helps. Any of that helps, and of course, again, sign up for the Patreon. That helps. Even $1 a month helps. But if you want the bonus content, you can sign up for the Mission Commander level and get free episodes and bonus episodes and commentaries and all kinds of stuff. I think we'll do a bonus episode about our best movies of the year for Patreon, and we'll do best movies of the decade, I think, as well.
Oh, sure.
For Patreon. It's going to be a lot of cool stuff, so please sign up for that. And if you don't want to do that, just throw in a few bucks by buying a shirt. Buy a shirt.
Magnet.
We have sales all the time, and we advertise them. Because TeePublic is a little pricier when there's not a sale, but they do sales a lot. Yeah. So pay attention to our Twitter, and you'll see those sales. And then also, if you don't want to buy a shirt, buy a sticker.
Yeah, or a magnet or a pen or something.
Yeah, that all helps. So please do that. And thank you so much. This episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and it's mixed by Luke Burson. And I think that might be it.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week, so stick around for that. And until then, follow us on all the social media platforms. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.